everyone, Rose Wildsmith here. Today I'm going to show you how to make this patchwork page junk journal, which you can use for art journaling, for your collage, for your glue book, all different kinds of things that you can use it for. This is bound with stitches. It's got 5 signatures inside. You can also make it like this, then just staple it in the middle. Another thing you can do is make a concertina style, which is basically one long page that's folded back on itself several times. And then I used some thicker pieces at the end to make the cover. It's really fun and really addictive once you get going. So let's get started. Okay, so I've got a whole load of things here that I can use to make my junk journal. First of all, I've got my own books, which you can buy on Amazon. And these are full of artist papers, scrapbook papers, that are all photos that I've taken of graffiti. And this one is all grungy textures. So if you want to check that out, I'll have a link to that in my description. I've also got an old music theory book, so it's got music notations and things in it. This is a Chinese book, Chinese language, so there's lots of nice texture there. This is an old kids book that I've chopped up and used parts of it for my video that I made on the cut-up method for making poetry, so I'll put the link to that video here as well. So there's lots of text, images, things like that. This is another old book and it's got lots of graphic pictures in it. And this is a colouring in pattern sheet book. And then I have my paper scraps. So I've roughly divided them into small, medium and large. And these are all just things where I've taken part of it off, cut off part of the page, and then I just put the rest in here. So this is a treasure trove of all sorts of different things. I have some comics, really old ephemera, really nice aged paper. These are from a book I cut out. They're all different sorts of handwriting. This is a book that I cut up and it's got lots of pictures and words. Typed page here, instruction manual. This came with some origami paper and I quite like these diagrams of the origami. This is another instruction booklet. Pictures that I've printed out. Oh, they're photos from my old studio. So I don't know why I've got these pictures, but I don't need them anymore, so I can tear them up and use them. Another thing where I've printed something out, the text, and then I've struck things out. This could just be thrown away, but I could use it for junk journaling. So this is just some printed paper with this Chinese design. I've got tons more. I've got old magazines, I've got things that I've painted. I've got a whole cupboard full of papers, so I could go on forever and ever talking about the kinds of papers I've got, but you get the idea. Just use anything that you've got. It's a good idea to not use anything that's too thin at this stage, but we'll come back in with some thinner, more translucent things later to strengthen the pages as we go. Now, to stick the things together, what I want is some masking tape, or you can also use washi tape. As you can see, I've got quite a collection here. I like to use these up. I feel like I've got way too many and I need to use them because I've been sort of hoarding them. And then you also need a glue stick. So I like to use Pritt Stick, but any glue stick will work. I'm going to use this book as my sort of template for how big I want to make my journal. I'm going to start by delving into my paper scraps here. And I want to find just different kinds of things. Here we've got a piece of map, because we're going to make a patchwork of a page. So I want a few different kinds of things that we can stick together. Here's a piece with paint on it. And what we're going to do is we're not going to make them this size, we're going to make them double spread size. So we can make them about this size, maybe a bit bigger. And then what you do when you've got 2 pieces is you take your masking tape and just stick them together like this, and then flip it open, and then come in with your glue stick on that little bit there, flip it back, and then it'll be nicely stuck down. Flip it over. Now when we flip this back over, it's not going to stick down on this bit, so I might need to come along and add a little bit of glue along this edge here. Now there's a little bit of glue that's still visible because I've not got it exactly right when I've stuck it down. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to add a little bit of tape over the top because I don't want all my pages to stick together. Let's see how we're doing. We need another strip here and a piece here. Let's see what else we've got. I'm going to have this with the texture on this side. You really don't need to be too precise because, after all, this is a junk journal. Okay, I think I'm just going to put another strip down here. Use this photo. Just tear a bit off the top. And tear this corner off here. Another fun thing you can do instead of using the masking tape along the edge like that is if you've got some of these really thin washi tapes, I mean, I suppose you could do this with thicker washi tape too, but just put it the other way, like you're suturing a wound. And then you still do the same thing, flip it open, glue on the other side. Now I've got a bit of glue here where I've misjudged, so I'm going to cover that up with, or I might cover it up with this deli paper actually, instead of more tape, just for something different. I like how translucent it is, so you can still see everything underneath, but it does give it a bit of a different texture. Okay, so there we go. It's just a little bit bigger than my book that I was using as my guide for the size. So I can get rid of the book now, and now I just need to make more pages that are about this size. And you can see that it's quite nice. It's a patchwork of different things. It's really interesting, different on both sides. And when we fold it in half, use a bone folder for this. You get some really interesting pages, so it's going to look really good when it's all together in a signature. So I think I'm going to make 5 pages for each signature, and I'm going to make 5 signatures for the whole book. So there we go, we have 5 signatures and each one has 5 sheets in it. So each signature has 10 pages because each sheet has been folded in half. Now, to make the cover, I am going to use this fabric that I did in the gauze painting video. So I'll leave a link to that video here. Then for the inside, I've got this paper bag, and I was watching a video by 49 Dragonflies. She likes to use paper bags as her journal covers because of the nice crinkly sound they make. So I just need to first measure the size that I need. So this is actually about right. Okay, so this is about the right size, and then I'm going to find a similar size of fabric. So this is going to be the outside. And then we'll have the paper inside, like that. And I've cut the fabric a little bit bigger than the paper because I think what I'll do is I'll stick this down and then I can fold this over. I might do that, or I might just trim it. Okay, so here I've got a piece of the Bond web, which is just about the same size as the paper. And then I'm going to use some greaseproof paper. I'm going to use this to protect my iron. The Bonder web has glue on one side and not on the other, so you want the glue side to be facing the inside part of the paper, and then put this over the top. So I've got my cover. Let's just check again that it's around the right size. Yeah, lovely. And now I'm going to stick it onto the back of here. So I'm going to peel off this paper that's part of the Bonder web. Okay, nice. It's nice and flat. Now I need to decide what I'm going to do about the edges. Am I going to fold them over? Or am I going to just trim it down? Okay, so I decided to trim it all the way around, and now I am ready to bind my cover and my signatures. What I need to do is make a template for where I'm going to put the holes. Okay, so I've got this piece of paper and I'm going to just trim it to the size of my cover. So then I can do that and find out where I need to go. And then I think I'm going to do 3 holes in each signature. Where's the top one going to go? Maybe here. Middle is about here. Bottom one about here. Okay. So there's the middle. I'll transfer the marks to the very edge so I can do this. So I can easily mark the very middle signature. And then I just need to decide how spaced out I want the signatures to be. Edge is about there. Oh, I didn't mark the top, did I? That was silly. And then we just want one that's sort of halfway in between those two. Okay, so I've marked all the holes on my cover. I'm going to use an awl to poke a hole. And then I need to poke holes in all my signatures. So I'm going to open it up like this. Okay, I've poked the holes in all of my pieces now. All right, so I've sewn in all of the signatures except one. So here they are, and I've sewn them in like this. I've sewn in each signature separately, and I'm using embroidery thread with a tapestry needle. Taking the embroidery thread, I'm putting a knot at the end, and actually you need to make a double knot, at least a double knot, otherwise it will just fall through the holes. So there's a nice big knot there. I'm going to start on the inside of the signature in the middle. I'm going to sew through the signature and the cover, pull it all the way through. So this is where you can see if you have a knot that's too small, it will just slip through, and then you go back in the top here. And then you go out through the middle one again. And you want to try really hard not to split, not to go through the middle of the thread or the knot, but to kind of go to the side of it. And here's the time when you can make it nice and tight. Don't pull it too tight, otherwise it'll just pull the knot through and rip all the pages. There we go. And then back in through the bottom hole here. And then I'm going to make a knot by going through here. Make a loop under here. And then make sure it's as tight as you can get it. Okay, and then I'm going to do it again, so under here, pull, there we go. And you can cut it off. These scissors are ridiculously big, but they're all I've got on hand. And there we are, my junk journal. And you can see the signatures are a bit wibbly wobbly in terms of height, but I don't really mind that because it's a junk journal and all the pages are patchworked and a little bit different from each other. They're not all nice and neat, but that's kind of the point because it's a junk journal. So I'll just do a quick flip through so you can see all the pages. I think I'm going to work on this journal in my online sketchbook socials. So if you'd like to come along to those, I'll start actually doing some more to these pages. Though some of them are so beautiful as they are, I don't know how I'm going to be able to cover them up or add anything. Oh, these are the pieces from my artist paper books that you can get on Amazon, and I really love the texture that they add. That's the other side, and that's another piece there. Really pleased with those. There's another piece there. See, this page is a little bit smaller, but it doesn't matter, it's a junk journal. And actually all of the pages in this book are pretty uniform compared to how I've done it before. I'll have to do a flip through of my other junk journal, which is, all the pages are different shapes, sizes, all sorts. I like this page already. And where I've doubled up the pages and where I've patchworked them, it actually makes the pages quite strong, as they've been sort of thickened up. I think this signature I accidentally sewed in upside down, but I'd already punched the holes through by then, so I didn't want to change it. So everything's upside down, but I can just work with it. It's a little bit more from this one, from my artist paper pad book. And this is from my ice dyeing paper video. I really like this. It looks like a film that's been exposed by accident or something. Here's another piece from my artist paper book. And this one. I like these little glasses there. And this is the end. And I quite like using the paper bag for the cover. The sound that it makes is really satisfying. And I like this fabric that I used as a drop cloth for my other video as the cover as well. But I think I'm going to add to this, decorate it a bit more, start to paint inside, start to add things into it to really play with it and make it into an art journal rather than just a junk journal.
Several days later.
I'm just going to show you how I have been working in it since I finished making it. One of the things I've been doing is going through and looking out for parts where the paper is quite thin, and then I am adding extra layers to it, because where you've taped it and glued 2 pages together, then you have double or even triple thickness, and that gives the page quite a lot of structure and helps it to be quite firm. But in the parts where there's just a single sheet, and especially some of these vintage papers are not really designed to take paint, so they can end up being quite thin. And so what I've been doing is going through and adding more to it. So in this example, we did this together. I added a bit of deli paper, and that really strengthens this part here. And here's an example where I've stuck some tissue paper down on top to add an extra layer, and on the other side I've stuck some printed deli paper down, and so this page has gone from being really quite thin to being nice and sturdy. Here I've added some dressmaking paper to give it a bit of extra structure, and on this side I've added some deli paper. On this part I added some printed deli paper, and you notice that the things that I'm choosing are all kind of translucent, which means that they are allowing the texture that's underneath that we like so much to still shine through. Here I've added some tissue paper, printed tissue paper. This is a piece of deli paper that I've stuck on the edge. This is a piece of sewn kitchen paper. Here's another piece of thin translucent paper with some marks over the top of it. On this piece, I've just added a scrap piece of paper that happens to be printed with a pattern on it. It's not all translucent, but it's just little pieces that I think will add strength to the pages and preserve the nice patchwork feel that we've already got going on. And then what I've done is I've come back in and I've started to add more media to it. On this page, you can see that I've started to add gesso, and I've added that with a scratchy sort of brush and just roughly painted on it. I've added some gesso onto this page as well. And then I've started to add other things. So here we've got some water-soluble crayons, and then I've come back in with some water to sort of soften them. This is a glassine pocket that I had that I thought would be quite nice. You can put something in the pocket there. Here I used a stencil with this distress spray stain. So I sprayed through the stencil. Here I added a piece of deli paper which I had stenciled over with some texture paste, and that has really added quite a lot of strength to this page because the texture paste is quite thick. And then afterwards I've come back in with some watercolour and started to add a bit of colour. Here you can see I've started to collage in images. This is some more of that texture paste deli paper. Another image that I've collaged in. And then I just thought I'd show you the cover. I found this piece of textile work that I'd done. It's a patchwork of different kinds of fabric, and then I've dyed it and distressed it a little bit. And then I chopped it up and I added this little piece of polka dot purple fabric to it. I stuck it down with this safety pin, this coloured safety pin, which I thought was quite cool. And then I came back over the top with this for making wedding hats. I found it in a textile shop and I just thought it was so cool, and so I've stitched that down. Just, you can see these little tiny purple stitches. I've just stitched that down, and I found this piece of textile work and I thought it looked really nice on the cover here, so I used some Bonder web to stick it down. So there we go. So now it's a fully functional journal and I'm actually using it as art journaling book. I'm really loving this new technique with the patchwork journal pages, so I hope you enjoy it too, and let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you have a go, and if you do, I'd love to hear how you get on. I think that's it from me for this video, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye! I used to be so inhibited and such a perfectionist, but when I changed how I looked at my sketchbook, I was able to relax and let myself go and ultimately find a real sense of creative freedom. One of the reasons that I used to feel so inhibited about my sketchbook practice was the fact that I had lots of unspoken rules in my head. Especially when you're starting a new book, that first blank page can be so paralysing. When I started to see my sketchbook as a private place, I stopped worrying about how the final result would look, and I started to focus more on how I felt while I was creating. In this online workshop, I will cover some mixed media techniques. I also cover the mindset and ways of approaching your sketchbook practice to keep you free and uninhibited and have a really joyful experience of keeping a sketchbook. I think of my sketchbook as my refuge from the world. It's somewhere that I come back to when I need some creative recharge time. This practice has been such a joyful and life-giving process for me. If I can pass it on to only one person, I'll be so happy.